time in the middle of January.
Governor Youngkin, do you think it's helpful for President-elect Donald Trump to be attacking Governor Newsom in the middle of what we're seeing in California right now?
Well, first of all, a governor's primary responsibility is to go to work to keep their state safe. And I have to say, one of the things we talk about as governors all the time is preparing and responding and then recovering after a natural disaster. What's been happening in Los Angeles has been horrific, and I think first and foremost our hearts pour out to all of those folks who have lost their homes, lost their livelihoods, and are really being driven out. I also believe that there does need to be some action, and I think that collectively between federal governments and state governments, we all work together to address these things. But let me just go right back to it. What's happening in California right now is absolutely heart-wrenching and horrific, and I think we're going to need help from the entire country in order for them to recover.
Does anyone else want to speak to that? Because you all, as governors, obviously deal with emergencies. Often you have to work with the federal government. Sometimes it's your party, sometimes it's not. What do you think about the idea of President-elect Donald Trump criticizing a governor in the middle of a disaster?
Well, first of all, I mean, when Donald Trump was president, he responded very strongly to natural disasters. I can tell you he responded very positively in Florida, but he also responded favorably when there were Democrat governors. And I think he understands the importance of these situations. You know, I will note, I mean, you talk about, you know, what you're doing. I remember when we had our hurricanes this past hurricane season. We had Hurricane Helene, and Florida, we're locked and loaded for this. We respond. But then you go to North Carolina, and it was like a third world country all of a sudden. There was no sense of urgency from the federal government. I think the state government didn't do very well. And so I'm sending my assets up there to help rescue people. Florida, the State Guard is up there doing that. And I think the administration was asleep at the switch. Then Milton came, and they knew that they had suffered some political negativity of that. So I have Harris trying to pick a fight with me in the middle of Hurricane Milton, saying, "Ooh, he's not taking my calls." I tell you, she never called me in my whole tenure as governor on any natural disasters, and I'm not sure she's done very much on this one, even though she's there. So, you know, these things are go how they go, but I can tell you, and I'll say the same with Biden. I worked well with Biden during his time in natural disasters, and I worked well with Donald Trump. So I'm very confident as a state that knows we face these, that a Trump administration is going to be very strong and is going to be there for the people regardless of party.
Is it appropriate for the president-elect or a president to be criticizing?
Is it appropriate for people in your industry to try to create division and to try to create narratives anytime these things happen? Now, you're not as interested in doing that because Newsom is a D. If Newsom was a Republican, you guys would go you would have him nailed to the wall for what they're doing over there. And I know we've dealt with it. We just assume in Florida, anytime something happens, it's going to be politicized by the media. So you guys sitting in judgment of Donald Trump, I mean, excuse me, I think your track record of politicizing these things is very, very bad.
Okay, last question.
Newsom should resign and that the wildfires are all his fault. So do you agree with those comments?
I remember when we had the Surfside Tower collapse, I had people from the Washington Post trying to blame me for it immediately without having any facts or anything. Oh, he didn't declare a state of emergency. First of all, state of emergency doesn't mean you can't respond. It's all that. Excuse me?
Biden did it. I think that's what you said.
Well, but what I'm telling you is you guys are trying to make an issue of it when I have watched from this seat. In fact, when I got elected governor, I was meeting with some of the other Republican governors, and what they would say is, hey, if you have a natural disaster, just know media's coming at you, they're going to do it. It's not the same. That mayor of L.A., if that were a Republican mayor, I could only imagine what that would do. I mean, you know the fires are at high risk, and you try to go to Africa or wherever she was to go on some type of voyage. You should have been there preparing and doing that, and yet I don't see a lot of heat being directed in that thing. And so, you know, I'd like to see some balance on how this is done. You could criticize the president-elect, but I think you also have to hold these other people accountable, and I have not seen that.
So the Republican governor standing in front of you were thrilled to accept the president-elect's invitation to come here so that we can have a collaborative working relationship, which we have not had for 4 years. So thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you all. Thank you.